A poor girl's heartfelt plea to a billionaire to save her sick mom leads to an unbelievable twist. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sound of my mother's gasping breaths cut through the silence of our small, dimly lit apartment. Her face was pale, the color draining faster than the sunlight filtering through the dusty window. I could feel panic clawing at my throat. Each heartbeat echoed in my ears. "Mom," I whispered, shaking, as if movement could somehow force her back to life. I had just turned 16, but in that moment, I felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. My mother had always been my anchor. She filled our faces with laughter, even when dinner was just instant noodles. "Well, be okay, sweetheart," she would say, her eyes shining with kindness. But now, those eyes were closed, clouded with sickness. I couldn't breathe, the air felt thick. Doctors had given us the news only days earlier. Stage 4. There was nothing they could do. Nothing. My heart shattered into pieces. On that fateful afternoon, as I sat by her side, I clutched her hand tightly, tears pooling on my cheeks. Suddenly, a wild idea sparked. What if I could reach out beyond our cramped world? What if I sought help from someone powerful? Someone who could change everything. I thought of Henry Miles, the billionaire tycoon whose face was plastered on every magazine cover and whose name echoed in the boardrooms of wealth. He was outrageous, eccentric. Could he possibly care? With shaky hands, I typed my plea into the email I never thought I would send. "Please," I begged, "my mom is all I have left." I hit send. The finality hit me like a punch. What if he didn't respond? What if he did? My heart raced as I hit the keys again, writing words I hoped would pierce through the screens, the distance, the silence. I barely slept that night, imagining what would happen if a billionaire replied. Would he laugh? Annoyed that some girl from nowhere dared ask him for help? By morning, I was consumed by thoughts. I was torn between hope and despair. And then, it came. A response. My eyes widened. It was short, mysterious: "Meet me at the cafe on 5th and Main tomorrow at noon. Bring your mother." The tremors shot through me. Could it be real? For a moment, hope wavered in the air between us. I shared the news with my mom, her eyes brightening for the first time in weeks. What if he can help? The words tasted sweet yet bitter. We both knew there was a world of difference between dreams and reality. The next day, I arrived at that cafe, the clatter of cups fueling my anxiety. My heart raced as I noticed the high-powered cars gleaming outside, the kind that belonged to people who fluttered in and out of my dreams. I clenched my fists, feeling the weight of uncertainty. What was I doing? And then, he stepped in. Henry Miles. He was even more imposing in person, dressed in an immaculate suit, his presence commanding silence. He scanned the room, and when our eyes met, it felt like something electric crackled in the air. "I got your email," he said, his voice low and powerful. I tried to hold my ground, to keep my feelings in check. But the fear bubbled up inside me, threatening to spill. There was something unnerving about him, something that set me on edge. "Tell me why I should help you," he prompted. In that moment, it felt as if all the eyes in the cafe were piercing through me. I took a deep breath, the lump in my throat choking me. The weight of the world hung on my every word. "My mom needs a chance to live," I said, trembling. The silence stretched on, thick like fog, and just as I thought he might turn away, he leaned in closer. "There's more at stake here than you realize," he whispered, his gaze intense. My heart sank, the grip of dread tightening around me. What did he mean? Just when I thought I might finally find an answer, a figure lurked outside the cafe. I squinted through the window, catching a glimpse of someone familiar. "Mom!" I gasped, my breath hitching. What was she doing here? The look in her eyes was a mixture of panic, And something deeper, something that felt dangerously out of place. A shadow loomed over us, and the entire scene began to unravel. What had I drawn us into? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The world outside the cafe faded to a blur as my heart thudded painfully against my ribcage. My eyes darted back to my mother, who was now standing in the doorway, her frail figure trembling against the backdrop of a world so starkly different from ours. I could hardly comprehend the panic in her eyes. What are you doing here? I rushed to her, desperate to pull her away from this chaos, away from whatever unknown danger had just been unveiled. Henry's gaze flicked between us, a shadow of something inscrutable flitting across his features. So you're not just a girl, are you? He remarked, his voice an unsettling calm amidst the storm brewing in my heart. Please, let's go, I pleaded with my mother, taking her arm gently. She felt painfully light, as if she were fading away with each passerby who brushed past obliviously. But before she could respond, something stirred in her expression, a fire I hadn't seen for days. No, I need to hear this, she insisted, pulling away from my grip. My stomach twisted in a knot. Mom, you're not well. Your mother is right, Henry interjected, his tone suddenly heavy, demanding attention. Often, things are not what they seem. I have a proposition for you both. What are you talking about? I asked, resentment puncturing my worry. How could he expect us to hear him after everything? I am not a monster, he said quietly, as if reading the confusion of my face. But your situation does interest me. There's potential, hidden beneath the surface. A shiver raced down my spine. What do you mean? I pressed, stubborn against the waves of panic washing over me. I deal in complex transactions, he explained, leaning back slightly, yet commanding the space with a magnetic pull. You are willing to do anything for your mother. Your determination is admirable. But there are risks involved, and I need a partner who understands what's at stake. Those words felt like gears shifting in a machine I didn't want to turn. I don't want to be part of some twisted game, I said, urgency spilling from my voice. I just want my mom to be okay. My mother stepped forward, her eyes sharp with clarity. What do you want in return? She asked, and I stared at her, incredulous. There's always a cost. Henry cracked a smile, though it didn't touch his eyes. You're smart. I like that. He leaned in closer, and the heaviness of his presence enveloped us. I need a guarantee, a commitment to something bigger than just medical bills and hospital rooms. There's a cause I support, an opportunity to affect change, but it requires people willing to stand at the edge of a precipice. Change. I echoed, my voice trembling as I wrestled with the implications. And sometimes, the narrow path to salvation isn't a straight line, he continued, his gaze flicking to the busy street beyond the cafe's glass windows. You could have the resources needed to secure what you desire, but it may come with other burdens. This was insane. You're proposing some kind of trade. It's about potential. Your mother's survival may depend on how far you're willing to go. As those words sank in, anger boiled within me. You think I'd barter my mother's life? His demeanor softened ever so slightly. I'm saying the stakes are high. However, there are people who will only listen to your voice if you have the right leverage. Endless possibilities rattled around in my mind, a chance to reshape our lives, to drag my mother from the brink. The weight of my choices pressed down on me, heavy and cruel. I can't let you do this, I said, my heart pounding in protest. Mom, I turned to her, desperation clawing at my throat. We can't trust him. We can't play games with our lives. Sometimes we have to take risks, she said gently but firmly. I've always taught you that, haven't I? Henry watched us carefully, as if our every word fed into the chess match unfolding before us. I was acutely aware of the silent battle, one where my heart was torn between protecting my mother and the strange allure of hope that shimmered on the edges of a potentially deal. Think about it, Henry said, his expression shifting to one of calculated patience. Your wish for your mother's health isn't just a plea, it's a starting point. There's a world waiting for you to step into. A tumult of emotions swirled inside me, hope, doubt, resentment, until, suddenly, something strange happened. In the moments that followed, as my mind raced, a voice from the past echoed in my ear. My mother's laughter, ringing like a bell, mingled with the haunted expression she wore now. This wasn't just about my mother's survival anymore. It was about what happened when dreams collided with reality. Just then, I caught a glimpse of a man sitting at the far corner of the cafe, his face hidden behind a newspaper. Something about him caught my eye, the way he seemed to be watching us, his gaze lingering a moment longer than it should have before he turned away. What's wrong? I heard my mother say, breaking my reverie. Someone's watching us, I whispered, feeling the gravity of the situation shift once more. But before I could point him out, Henry's words struck me anew. All choices come with consequences. The question is whether you're ready to face them. With that, the ground beneath me shifted, and I realized the depths of this entanglement reached far beyond our immediate struggle. What new darkness had we stepped into? And when the time came to choose, what price would we be willing to pay? My response hung in the air, teetering on a precipice I wasn't sure I wanted to jump from, desperate for guidance, scared of the unknown shift that was destined to unfold. The feeling was a full-body tremor, a call to action, but I stood paralyzed in that moment, staring into the fiery depths of uncertainty. The cafe hummed quietly around us, yet inside my chest, a tempest brewed. I felt my resolve quivering like a fragile candle flame in the howling winds of fate, the swirling emotions mingling with the scent of burnt coffee and stale pastries. It was as if the world conspired against us, each unfamiliar face a potential threat, every drop of rain outside a physical manifestation of my doubts. Look, I began, my voice shaky as I tried to anchor myself amidst the chaos encroaching on our fragile sanctuary. Just give me a moment. I held my mother's gaze, desperately searching for the unwavering support I had always found in her. We can't rush into something we don't fully understand. This isn't just about understanding, she replied softly, the weariness in her eyes tempered by a strange intensity. It's about acting before it's too late. A chill crept down my spine as Henry's presence loomed closer, his energy potent and almost intoxicating. And time is something you can't afford, he interrupted, leaning forward, his interest piqued by the vulnerability that crackled in the air. But trust me, the cost of inaction can be far more painful than the sacrifices required to seize this chance. What chance? I snapped, but as I spoke, I could feel my defense faltering. It was as if he had laid my innermost fears bare, exposing them to the sharp edges of reality. What exactly are you offering us? An opportunity to pivot your lives from stagnant despair to something that could transform not only your mother's future but your own, he said, each word loaded like a bullet aimed at my heart. Think of it as a necessary evolution. Before I could respond, the man in the corner of the cafe caught my eye again. This time he wasn't hiding behind the newspaper. He was staring directly at us, his brow knit in concern, dark circles underlining his weary eyes. An unsettling familiarity flickered within me, but it was gone as quickly as it had arrived, leaving me feeling disoriented. Who is that? I murmured, tilting my head in his direction. Henry followed my line of sight. Just a passerby. Don't lose your focus. I'm concerned about him, my mother said, suddenly earnest. Maybe we should, but Henry cut her off. You know it's not him you should worry about. It's your own future. Right now, it hangs by a thread. The urgency in his tone was hard to dismiss. I felt as though I was being caught in the undertow of his words. If we get involved with you, I said, weighing my options, what's to stop you from taking everything from us? How can we trust you? Trust is a currency I can't offer lightly, he admitted, his gaze piercing. But I can assure you that I have the resources to help your mother in ways the conventional system can't. The silent man in the corner was still watching us, each twitch of his eyebrows seeming to echo in the recess of my mind. My instincts told me he was connected to this web of chaos in ways I couldn't yet comprehend. Is he one of your players? I asked, glancing back at Henry, anger bubbling under my skin. I have many players, he replied smoothly, but understanding who they are is part of this journey. Then, with barely a pause, he added, but you need to make your move while you still can. Why do I get the feeling you already know what my answer is going to be? I asked, exasperated. Because you know, at your core, what loss feels like, he said, his voice low. And the potential for new beginnings often rests in the ashes of the old. I felt something break inside me. The truth was a relentless thing, pushing me towards the cliff's edge, urging me to leap even as I clung to the remnants of my past. But I also realized, in the darkest corners of my heart, that if I didn't choose to act, I risked losing my mother. The stakes had never felt so high. A part of me longed for escape, to break free from this twisted reality, but the haunting thought of my mother's fragile state anchored me. As if sensing my turmoil, Henry let silence hang heavily for a moment. Finally, I whispered, if we do this, we need to know everything, no secrets. We can't afford that. My heart beat like a war drum. Very well, he conceded, the glint in his eye revealing a mixture of admiration and amusement. But remember, even with transparency, the truth can feel as heavy as a shackle can. Just as the weight of my decision solidified, the man in the corner rose and approached us, asserting an unexpected urgency in his step. My breath caught in my throat as he stopped in front of our table, his intense gaze boring into my soul. Are you involved with him? He asked, his voice a temporary bomb in the suffocating tension. Excuse me? I shot back, instinctively defensive. He's dangerous, the man said, urgency cutting through his words like a knife. You need to walk away before he makes you an offer you'll regret. I felt my breath hitch as all eyes turned to Henry, who remained unfazed. The room seemed to tilt with possibility, the weight of uncharted decisions hanging in the air as I oscillated between fear and determination. As I caught Henry's smellier wolf among sheep, the magnetic pull of his darkness pinned me in place. The man's warning echoed in my ears, crashing around me like the unrelenting waves of a storm. And in that moment of tension, I realized that every decision would lead us deeper into the unknown. But the truth remained, trapped in this volatile dance, with every choice shadowed by uncertainty. We could either succumb to the darkness or claw our way toward a flicker of hope. But the question lingered in the suffocating silence, would I heed the voice warning me of the precipice, or would I follow my heart onto a path laden with secrets and irrevocable consequences? The cafe buzzed around us, sounds blending into a dissonant hum that matched my conflicting thoughts. My pulse raced, matched only by the tension that hung thick in the air. The man's warning lingered like a heavy fog, each word sinking deeper into my consciousness. I glanced at Henry, whose composure surprised me. He was a man who thrived on chaos, a predator cloaked in charm. What do you know about him? I asked the stranger, my voice barely above a whisper, trembling with urgency. The man seemed less interested in focusing on Henry and more fervently intent on me. I know what he has taken from others like you, he replied, biting back an edge of bitterness in his tone. He entangles people in webs of deceit. It's all a game to him, and you're the pawns. Stop, I interrupted sharply, but my voice lacked conviction. You don't know us, don't you see? He plays on your fears. Your love for your mother senses that desperation. It's a power play, and right now, he has you in his grasp. My heart sank at his words, yet I couldn't deny the reality that lay in them. I felt tethered to Henry by a complicated blend of necessity and dread. But if we refuse him, my voice faltered, the alternative looming over us like an executioner. Your mother's illness will only worsen. It's a trick, a ruse to tether you to him. But there is another way. What other way? I demanded, frustration pulling in my chest. You don't even know us. He hesitated, glancing over his shoulder as if afraid someone might overhear. I do know what it's like to be caught between loyalty and self-preservation. He reached into his worn jacket, producing a small card, sliding it covertly onto the table between us. Reach out if you need help. But trust your instincts. My fingers grazed the surface of the card, an invitation echoing with the promise of an ally, yet fraught with danger. What's your name? Ethan, he murmured, casting one last look back at Henry before retreating, disappearing into the busy street. I watched him leave, the weight of the card heavy in my pocket alongside newfound uncertainty. It felt wrong to entertain options outside of Henry's pool, yet the allure of an ally's support gave me pause. Who was that? Henry asked, breaking my trance. Just someone looking out for us, I said defensively. The way you are, right? His smile mirrored a predator's satisfaction. You shouldn't give credence to warning whispers, my dear. Fear makes for poor counsel. Maybe so, I retorted, standing my ground, but fear isn't the only emotion I carry. I'm driven by love and the need to protect what I hold dear. Henry leaned back in his chair, visibly intrigued. And what if love leads you to decisions that chain you to something worse? Fear isn't the enemy, ignorance is. You deserve clarity before you plunge into the dark waters I offer. Or maybe it's you who thrives in that darkness, I countered, ignoring the chill threading through my thoughts. As our emotional standoff persisted, I felt my heart pulse relentlessly, asserting its need to protect what was left of our fragile world. Do you really believe you can navigate this path alone? Henry asked, his tone shifting slightly, darkened by a trace of genuine intrigue. The weight of history lingered in the back of my mind, glimmers of my past where I'd fought alone and lost. Understand this, my dear, sometimes, it's easier to let others guide you through the dark, rather than attempt to forge ahead blind on your own. As those words sank deep under my skin, a car sped past the cafe window, splashing rainwater onto the sidewalk and momentarily obscuring my view. In that brief moment, I saw the flash of a familiar face in the reflection. Ethan, lingering just beyond the cafe's warmth, watching intently from the edge of the street. The world outside looked grim and unwelcoming, but his steady gaze felt like a lifeline. I turned back to Henry as he observed the unfolding scene with a bemused expression. It seems you've already caught the attention of someone who doesn't want you with me. An unsettling knot twisted inside me, the implication swirling around my conscience like a tempest. Maybe he wants me to make a choice I can see clearly. Choices are daunting, the most unbearable of burdens, Henry muttered. But a choice, nonetheless, could lead you to the salvation you seek. A part of me felt the truth buried beneath the surface of his words, yet I couldn't shake the nagging doubt clawing at my insides. If I choose you, what's the cost to my heart? His response was as chilling as it was alluring. Oh, but isn't that the true gamble? To risk everything for the possibility of something immeasurably greater. Before I could articulate my apprehension, the cafe door swung open, the bell jingling with a cascade of warmth that followed. But the comfort was fleeting. The atmosphere shifted as the door revealed a figure framed in shadows, wet from the rain but unyielding. My breath caught in my throat as realization crashed over me like a tidal wave. It was my mother. She stood, pale and shaking, her narrowed eyes darting between Henry and me, her expression riddled with both fear and determination. "Sweetheart, we need to talk," she said, her voice steady but laced with a tremor that sliced through the thick tension. "What are you doing here?" I called, panic rising like bile. "You shouldn't be out in this weather." "I heard things I didn't want to believe," she said, locking her gaze on Henry, her fury apparent. "And I can't ignore this any longer. Not for you, not for me. There are consequences to every choice, and you're walking a tightrope I fear you won't survive." As I searched my mother's eyes for clarity, a storm raged within me, uncertainty transforming into dread. There was no safe path forward anymore. The echoes of fate and fear began to blend with that suffocating anxiety. I felt like I was dangling over the edge of a cliff, one option behind me, the other uncertain, yet enticing, and in that moment of devastating clarity, a thought flickered like a small flame of hope amidst the chaos. Perhaps the right choice lay not just in the arms of a stranger, but in the unwavering love I shared with the person who stood beside me. Yet as I faced her, ready to reveal the truth of my entanglement with Henry, the reality struck. Every layer I peeled back unleashed a new danger. And I knew right then that the only way out would come at a steep, pricier price none of us were ready to pay. The tension in the cafe shifted dangerously, as if the very air was charged with electricity. My mother's presence anchored me to a reality I had desperately tried to escape, a tether that pulled me back just as I was starting to drift into the seductive abyss that Henry represented. Her eyes, wide with an urgency that mirrored my own, held the power to either shatter or solidify my resolve. "Mom, please, you shouldn't be here," I implored, glancing from her to Henry, who remained seated, a predatory glint in his gaze, as though he relished this complicated play of emotions unfolding before him. "Right now, you don't understand the implications of your choices," she pressed, her voice a mix of frustration and concern. "Henry represents more than just a solutions, a maze with no exit. I've seen it before." "Seen what before?" I shot back, frustration bubbling over. "You think you know what this is, but you don't. You don't know what it's like to feel so hopeless, to be so close to losing everything." "Then let me help you preserve what's left," she urged gently, her shoulders stiffening against the rain-soaked chill. "You have to trust me, there are ways out of this, other ways. We don't need to resort to his offers. I've fought too hard to watch you enter a dark world." Henry's expression darkened as he leaned forward, interjecting smoothly, "Emma, you should consider your mother's past naivete. She's speaking from a place of fear, not reality. Why recoil from an opportunity when it could provide the very thing you seek? The shadows may obscure the truth, but they also conceal the wealth of potential." "Potential for what?" I retorted, feeling like I was being wedged into the crevice between two opposing forces, one promising an escape, the other warning of the perilous path. "This is not merely about potential, it's about my life, my mother's life. I refuse to gamble them in your corrupt game." My mother stepped forward, her wiry frame trembling with the weight of her words. "To hinge everything on the whims of a stranger, someone who only offers temporary reliefs, to ignore the lasting damage that could arise," she implored. "You must think about this carefully." I looked back at Henry, caught in the liminal space between determination and despairing instinct. He smiled, yet it was a smile heavy with veiled resentment. "It's simple, my dear. You can choose safety in the unknown or risk everything for the known failure of your current situation. Just remember, darkness often provides clarity in ways you least expect." His words hung in the air, creeping under my skin like a cold wind. They echoed my own internal conflict, the perpetual battle within me that yearned to shield my mother, yet longed to escape into the darkness he offered. As my mind darted between possible outcomes, memories of stifled dreams and twisted ambitions washed over me. "I want to believe in you, Henry," I confessed, the turmoil raging within, "but you haven't shown me honesty. You are just another voice whispering sweet nothings to mask the truth. My mother wants me to choose a path of light, but how do we know it's not just another illusion? Because sometimes the warmth of light feels deceptively similar to the touch of fire," my mother offered quietly, both a warning and a plea. You must be able to differentiate between the two before they consume you. In that moment, the cafe's ambience experienced a subtle shift. The previous buzzing chatter faded into a muffled echo, leaving only the sound of my heart hammering within my chest. I felt the weight of every choice pressing down on me, the lives altered by my decision haunting the air around me. Just then, Henry's smirk transformed into a gaze of feigned pity. You really think you can protect her from everything? There are events that unfold beyond your control. You might just be sealing her fate along with yours. Besides, it's not only your life at risk. Where do you think your mother's future truly lies? Panic clawed at my throat, a beast that hissed insidious possibilities. I reflected on the sacrifices I had made for her endless struggles for the bills, the nights spent hoping for better outcomes, each moment combined as an act of love that now felt shaken by doubt. I did not want to be another pawn in another's game, I wanted to be the architect of my destiny. Mom, I murmured, the sorrow threatening to consume me, what if he's right? What if I've been fighting against shadows my entire life? My voice cracked, the vulnerability stripped bare. Her expression softened in sympathy, but her resolve remained. Then you fight the shadows, Emma. Fighting isn't cowardly, it's necessary. I'd rather you take that chance than blindly follow a path that promises light but delivers darkness. As tears threatened to spill from my eyes, I felt desperation tighten its grip in my chest. I needed clarity, and my choices felt impossibly tangled. The cafe's warmth felt incongruent to the ice that had begun to creep into my veins. The raindrops outside drew patterns